For centuries, we called them primitive, cavemen, beasts, a mistake of evolution, but the truth is far more human. They built tools with precision, hunted mammoths and rhinos across frozen valleys, cared for their sick, and buried their dead with flowers and fire. Long before we existed, they painted caves and made art that still survives today. They laughed, they fought, they loved, and for nearly 500,000 years they ruled the Ice Age world, until one day they vanished, but not entirely, because a small part of them still lives inside us. Around 400,000 years ago, in the frozen plains of Eurasia, a new kind of human emerged, short, strong, and built for the cold. Broad shoulders, powerful hands, every inch of their body designed for endurance. These were the Neanderthals, the Ice Age humans. While our ancestors evolved under the warm African sun, they were forged in the bitter cold of Europe and Western Asia, a land of mammoths, woolly rhinos, and endless snow. Yet somehow they thrived. Their skulls were larger than ours, their brains on average even bigger. Their occipital lobes and visual systems were highly developed, helping them track movement across fog and snow. They saw detail, depth, and texture with an intensity modern humans can barely imagine. Still, they weren't dumb brutes. They planned hunts, crafted tools, and survived in the harshest environments on Earth for over 300,000 years. Something no other human species had done before. They built shelters from bone and hide, stitched clothing from animal skins, and mastered fire with skill. They weren't reckless hunters. They were deliberate. They drove reindeer, bison, and horses into ravines. They built traps, used spears hardened in fire, and cooperated to bring down animals 10 times their size. A single woolly rhinoceros could feed a clan for weeks. And when the herds disappeared, they adapted, trapping rabbits, catching tortoises, and fishing the rivers. In caves across Spain, we've found tortoise shells and rabbit bones, proof that they ate everything the land could offer. Along the coast, they feasted on shellfish, seals, and even dolphins. They dove into cold water to collect crabs and clams, and the bony growths in their ears show they were frequent swimmers. The first divers in human history may not have been us, but them. Their stone tools were masterpieces of practicality. The levallois technique, shaping a core stone to produce sharp flakes, was both efficient and elegant. From one piece of flint, they could create blades sharper than a modern razor. But what truly set them apart was how they combined materials. They learned to haft, to attach a stone to wood with cord and glue. They used birch tar, pine resin, and beeswax, natural adhesives they heated and refined. It was early chemistry, practiced 200,000 years before anyone wrote it down. They even mixed resins to increase strength, pine sap with beeswax for flexibility, and bitumen to make it waterproof. This ability to think in steps, to process, combine, and problem solve is one of the clearest signs of advanced intelligence. They carved spears from spruce, balanced for both thrusting and throwing. One 300,000-year-old spear from Germany could fly 20 meters with precision. They weren't guessing. They were testing, refining, learning. That's not instinct. That's innovation. They also understood the world beyond tools and food. They knew which herbs could heal pain or soothe fever. They chewed chamomile, yarrow, and poplar bark, plants that contain anti-inflammatory compounds and natural aspirin. Some even ate mold that produced penicillin-like chemicals. They were scientists in their own way, learning through centuries of trial and observation. But they were also artists. In the deep silence of caves, long before modern humans arrived, Neanderthals painted. Red ochre handprints, lines, and animal figures, some over 60,000 years old. In one cave, they arranged hundreds of stalagmites into stone rings deep underground, each burned by torches, forming what may be the earliest known ritual space. It served no practical purpose. They didn't live there. They went down for something else, something spiritual. They had imagination. They could think symbolically. They could dream. And they loved. They buried their dead with care, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with tools. An infant in France was buried with 3 flint scrapers. A child in Uzbekistan was laid in a circle of ibex horns. At Shanidar Cave, a man was buried under a blanket of flowers, a gesture that echoes across 60,000 years. They didn't just dispose of the dead, they honored them. That means they felt loss, they felt connection, they felt grief, and in their living moments they felt compassion. Over 80% of Neanderthal fossils show serious injuries. Crushed ribs, broken legs, damaged skulls. Yet most had healed. They cared for their sick, tended to their wounded, and shared food with those who couldn't hunt. One man found in Shanidar was blind in one eye, deaf and missing an arm, yet lived for decades. He was cared for by others, federal protected, loved. That is empathy. That is humanity. Long before history began, for hundreds of thousands of years they ruled Europe. Then we arrived. Homo sapiens, tall, lean, curious, restless. Two kinds of humans meeting face to face. They looked different. We were more slender. They were more powerful, but not enough to matter. They saw us as we would have seen them. Another tribe of people. They met, shared space, shared ideas, and shared blood. Every human alive today outside Africa carries Neanderthal DNA, about 2% of our genome. For a while, both species coexisted peacefully, but climate change returned. The Ice Age tightened its grip. Forests turned to tundra, food ran thin, small Neanderthal groups began to fade. Their population dropped to only a few thousand. Low diversity led to health problems and lower fertility. Meanwhile, modern humans spread fast, with better networks, lighter tools, and higher birth rates. Over generations, the Neanderthals didn't die out violently. They were absorbed. Their last fires burned in Spain and Siberia, and by 37,000 years ago, pure Neanderthals were gone. But their legacy lived on, inside us. Today, nearly 20% of their total genome still survives in modern humans. Some of their genes help us resist viruses, others help us adapt to cold or regulate our circadian rhythm. Even our hair and skin tone carry traces of their evolution. They help shape who we are, our biology, our immunity, even our emotions. They were never failures of evolution. They were explorers of what it means to be human. They mastered fire, they built families, they cared, they imagined. They survived the impossible, ice, predators, famine, for 300,000 years. And in the end, they didn't vanish. They became us. Their story isn't one of extinction, it's one of transformation. Because the truth is, humanity was never just us. It was always them too. They were our cousins, our rivals, our teachers, and our blood. And though their bodies are gone, their spark still burns within us. Every time we dream, love, or fight to survive, we echo their story, the Neanderthals, the lost species that became us. The Neanderthals vanished, but their story still lives in us. Keep exploring the forgotten worlds of our past. Subscribe to Edge of Origin, and let's keep discovering what made us human.